Good morning. I'm Phil Nagy from the board. I would like to thank the board for spending all day yesterday revising our strategic plan and setting priorities for next year. So thank you, board. Now, the first announcement, I promised Eva that would have some oomph. So we're all going to say oomph on 3. 1, 2, 3. Oomph. Thank you. The new guide to adult learning and growth is available this morning at the back of the worship hall. Eva will pass them out. Or at the green mug table in Fellowship Hall. Lots going on. Map making, navigating your spiritual journey, starts Tuesday, October 8th. A 6-session course geared to new and newish folks to help you make connections, learn more about FirstU, and explore your spiritual journey. Our journey groups, formerly called chalice groups, also start in early October. You'll want to register for both of these courses soon. The next announcement comes with choreography. Where are they? They're slow. Here they come. The Environmental Action Group is asking you to come to a march next Saturday, Expose the Climate Culprits. 11 a.m. at City Hall. We'll focus on some of the many organizations that are either slow to take climate action or who are actively working against climate action. We finish at Confederation Park for food and socializing. So 11 a.m. Saturday, look for the bright red "No Planet, No Home" on our FirstU banner. Lots more information on the climate action page. Protest schedules available at the back of the worship.
I'm afraid Mike is away today, so he said he doesn't have his schedule. But 2 meet us downtown at the City Hall.
Thank you. Next, Mia's Restaurant, corner of Richmond and Woodruff, is suffering from the construction. The Mia family are part of our family. The father, Samsu Mia, lived in this building for a year and a half until the government recognized him as a refugee. That was about 18 or 20 years ago. But they need your help. If you like Indian food, their food is good. Mia's Indian Restaurant, corner of Woodruff and Richmond. And finally, the plant sale continues. There are still more plants for sale at the back of the church after the service to aid our food cupboard. Thank you very much.
Our opening song today is "O River" by Mamuse, and we sang it last week. Last week we kind of focused on learning the finding my way, that part. Today we'll start by learning the second part here in gray, which is "O River." So I'll sing it for you first. Oh, river, I hear you, feel you calling me. Oh, river, who will I be when I reach the sea? Let's try it together. Oh, river, I hear you, feel you calling me. Oh, river, who will I be when I reach the sea? Oh, river, I hear you, feel you calling me. Oh, river, who will I be when I reach the sea? Oh, river, I hear you, feel you calling me. Oh, river, who will I be when I reach the sea? One last time. Oh, next week we're going to do both parts. So be excited.
Both parts.
Yeah, 2 parts at once.
If I call in sick, that won't be the reason. We'll see. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. That's what Phil was supposed to say. But I'll still say it. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or watching from wherever you may be, know that you are welcome among us. I'm the Reverend Eric, this congregation's lead minister.
And I'm Susan, your worship associate this morning. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who have the willingness to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. Let us join our voices in song. Please rise in body or in spirit as we sing together, "Where Do We Come From?" number 1003 in the Teal hymnal, and the lyrics will also be on the screen. And I better go find my hymnal.
This one there.
Yeah, this one. Okay. It's there.
Where do we come from? What are we?
As health challenges continue, do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to keep in touch. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you are here in Worship Hall this morning and would like more information about FirstU, it is available from Mary at the welcome table at the back of the pews. She's waving at you right now. We encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Sign-up information is available on our website under the Communications tab and as a QR code on the back of our printed order of service. Right there. Whoops. Where am I? Shouldn't do that, I lose my place. Totally lost it. We encourage you to sign up. Yeah, QR code on the back of printed service. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our website for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, though some of our activities take place online. This morning, each of us is welcome. We of any heritage or faith, whatever our burdens, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are. Today, we are all a part of this spiritual community.
Thank you, Susan. We light our chalice flame this morning to these words by Suzelle Lynch. And we've got a helper this morning. See if I can do this without getting burned myself. So it won't be his doing, it'll be mine. I think you've got it, my friend. Yes. This flame that has been kindled for us in the chalice of faith holds blessings of warmth and light and life-giving energy. It shines forth a beacon to guide us all home. It lights up our longings to connect and to share. It possesses the power to shape a world where equity and compassion reign supreme. May this warmth and this light and life-giving energy celebrate the blessings we have claimed and help us extend them in hands and hearts that offer these blessings to all. Our chalice is lit. Come, let us worship together as we begin singing our chalice song. Jody, you've got a story for us all? Yay!
Good morning, everyone. I am Jody McIntosh. I'm the Director of Religious Exploration, and I have a story for you this morning called Trying by Kobe Yamada. do you do that? I didn't realize I had said it out loud, but the sculptor looked over and replied, "You simply do it." "Oh no, I could never do that." "How do you know?" he asked. "I just know." Confused, I walked away. He must be joking, I thought. But as I left, I couldn't help wondering what it would be like to create something so incredible. When I returned, the sculptor looked over at me and asked, "How is your sculpture coming along?" "I'm just here to watch." "The best way to give your talents an opportunity is to try," he responded. "I'd rather just watch. I can't mess things up if I just watch." "Ah, yes," he nodded. "If you do nothing, it feels safe, but everything stays the same. If you do nothing, there is less to experience, less to love, less to learn. The fear of failing is the scariest part, and it stops most people from starting. The only way to get to where you want to go is to take a step in that direction. And the best way to do that is to begin." It was all I could think about. Even as I slept, I dreamt about creating beautiful things. I was excited to get started, but as I was working, I realized that something was wrong. With every strike, I felt a little more deflated. With every blow, my disappointment grew. This was not turning out the way I had imagined. Why did I think I could do it? Why had I let myself care so much about it? The next time I saw the sculptor, he asked about my work. I told him it was no good and that I had to quit. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "Because it feels awful to want something so badly and then just be disappointed." "Yes," said the sculptor replied, "disappointment hurts, but failure is just temporary and in many ways necessary. It shows us how something can't be done, which means we are a little closer to finding out how it can be. When you first tried to walk, you fell, but you picked yourself up and you tried again. You were willing to fail over and over, and that is why you succeeded. How do I know this? You are standing in front of me right now." I had tried and I had failed. Now he was asking me to try again? What good would that do? I had already proven I couldn't do it. But if I was honest, I wanted to believe that I could. So even though I worried that I wasn't good enough, I decided to try again. I worked, and then I worked some more. And while I could see it was a little bit better, it still wasn't at all what I wanted it to be. I stormed up to the sculptor. "See, I told you, I wasn't any good. And this proves it. Are you happy now?" "Yes," he replied. "I'm happy. It's good to see you sculpting. But it's terrible. I don't even know what I'm making anymore." "You're making progress. I see talents emerging. I see risks being taken. I see courage. I see caring. I see perseverance. Yes, I see much progress. And I hope you will keep on trying." I tried again and again and again and again and again and again, and I tried again. As I stepped back and I looked at my work, I had to admit, I wished it was better. I went to talk to the sculptor, and he asked me to go for a walk with him. He said, "I know it can be hard when things don't turn out as you had hoped, but be proud of your failures. I know I am every one of them." "I can't imagine you ever failing." He laughed. "More times than I can count. But each time you fail, you get a little smarter and a little braver and a little stronger. The truth is, we are all failures. The dreamers, the doers, the creators. Being a failure means you loved something, you cared. It means you stepped forward and didn't hold back. It means you tried." "That is why I brought you here," he gestured to the statues around him. "These are my friends. These are my failures. And I'm grateful for every one of them because they helped me become who I am today." "I will tell you a secret," the sculptor confided. "I am now much closer to the end of my life than the beginning, and time passes whether we have the courage to do something good and worthwhile or we didn't. It's been years since he's been gone. I will always measure the time I spent with him. I will always treasure the time I spent with him, and I will never forget our conversations or what he taught me. When we make it safe to fail, we make it safe to succeed." How do I do that? How do I do that? Thank you. We will now sing Our Children on Their Way, and as our custom, if you make a beautiful arch for them, we will go under it down this aisle. Thank you.
Each week we pause in our time together in recognition of the joys and sorrows in our lives and across the globe. We honor our celebrations and challenges by placing stones in bowls of water as the ripples extend outward, imagining them continuing out beyond these small bowls, out through and past our pews, out into the larger community of all. This morning, we have happy pre-90th birthday greetings for our own Rule, who tells me the birthday is coming up on Tuesday, but we can say happy birthday now, can't we? My grandmother, before she died at the age of 93, taught me the wisdom of birthday seasons. So, Rule, yours has officially begun. Long may it reign. And I also want to thank Rule for bringing back our Sunday morning forums. He did so this morning on the philosophy of international relations. Thank you, sir. And a couple of other stones this morning. Andrew and Mariella's stepdaughter is recovering in hospital. Our care goes out to the entire family. And I just learned this morning that our own Elizabeth Bowen died on Friday. She had been declining in health for some time. Information on a celebration and remembering her will be available as soon as it is available. This morning, we are missing our dear Elizabeth. If you have joys or sorrows or challengings to honor publicly, please come forward now and drop a stone or two into the bowls before us. Carrying cards for Rule and Mariella and Andrew are at the back of the hall for us to sign. Even if you don't yet know these folks, signing a caring card to them is a way for us to extend our care on behalf of those who have given so much to this community. Let us move now into a time of stillness and reflection. After several moments, we'll come back together through the gift of music.
This morning's reading is from Leaving Church by Barbara Brown. Not, I think, our own Barbara Brown, but she can correct me later if I'm wrong. A shirt box arrived at my house the week before I was ordained as a deacon in the Episcopal Church. The customs form, filled out by a shipping clerk at J. Whipple and Company Limited in Exeter, England, said clergy apparel. Inside the box were 3 black long-sleeved shirts, 3 white clerical collars, and 3 pairs of brass-plated collar studs. As long as I had waited for them, my stomach lurched at the sight of these new clothes. Who did I think I was? More to the point, who would other people think I was once I put these things on? Since I had been a late-blooming flower child, my choice of vocation struck many who knew me as odd. When I announced that I was going to seminary straight out of college, my mother turned from doing the dishes at the kitchen sink and said, "You will get over this." Even my college advisor worried about me. Although I had majored in religion, my transcript listed more courses in mysticism and environmental ethics than it did Bible and theology. I had no intention of being ordained, which was a good thing because I did not belong to any church that might ordain me. I was simply drawn to spend as much time reading, thinking, and writing about God as I could, and seminary seemed to offer me the best chance of doing that. As hard as I have tried to remember the exact moment when I fell in love with God, I cannot do it. My earliest memories are bathed in a kind of golden light that seemed to embrace me as surely as my mother's arms. The divine presence was strongest outdoors and most palpable when I was alone. When I think of my first cathedral, I am back in a field behind my parents' house, with every stalk of prairie grass lit up from within. I can hear the entire community of crows, grasshoppers, and tree frogs who belong to this field with me. The smell of the grass is so sweet that it perfumes me from within, while the sun heating the top of my head brings out my own fragrance too. There is more in this field than I will ever be able to discover. Not only the abandoned shells of land snails and the shed feathers of blue jays, but also round holes in the earth that might have been dug by field mice or black snakes, but I will never know which, because as long as I lie there watching the hole, no creature ever appears to come in or out. When I was 7, I went to church for the first time, where I got the same feeling of being held that I knew from the field. I furthermore got the impression that the people who were there that morning had figured out a way of talking about that feeling. They seemed to know where it came from, who was responsible, what it meant, and how to respond to it. An hour later, I was back in the car with my family, permanently hooked on finding out more about God.
Our anthem this morning will be sung by Chalice Choir. This composition is by Lawrence Cole. He wrote this round towards the end of his work with the Community Choir Leadership Program in Victoria, BC. And he says that surrounded by singers who are stepping into their role as song leaders and community choir directors, he felt the catalyzing effect of mutual encouragement and inspiration that happens when each one finds his or her life purpose and calls others to theirs. The text is, "Oh, when we come into our calling, we become bells, calling to everyone else. Oh, come, come into your calling." It had my notes.
How do we learn what is in us that can be? How do we discover what we might ultimately do? I'll be sharing a couple of things. I'm looking at the clock, so I'm not going to keep to my manuscript. We're going to be a little shorter on this. I want to share some of my story about what has drawn me into this profession of parish ministry. But I want to begin by saying that I know full well that people are called to any number of avenues and ways of being in life. Artists, teachers, maybe even bureaucrats. I could learn a little more about that. And I remember a time in my life when I wanted to be a photographer. It's a hobby I don't have much time for now, but I was spending so much time taking pictures and in the darkroom that I realized I, as someone who wanted to be in a family, needed to limit my time with my hobby as much as I loved it, because it was pulling me away from other people who I needed to be in relationship with. Being a parent, being a family member can be a calling too. Just look what's happening in the first pew over here. So, I want to tell you just a couple things. And I want to begin by saying I was reminded recently that It's a trite metaphor these days, but I remember that picture that came up, 20, 30 years ago of the iceberg, and we could see just how much was below the surface of the water. And it reminded us, like no other image had, that when we look out at one another, we're generally seeing just the top of each of us that's above the surface of the water. And there is so much more in each and every one of us that isn't immediately apparent on a surface kind of way. I want to talk about falling in love with parish ministry. And it happened, and I realized just this morning that this happened 30 years ago now, last month, when I started my parish internship at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Sonoma County, which is now the Unitarian Congregation of Santa Rosa. That October, my supervising minister, the Reverend Dan O'Neill, was diagnosed with the cancer that would take his life within 2 years. And we got the news the week before I was set to speak on the topic, what's wrong with dying? I don't know why I kept with that topic that day, probably because I didn't have the mental or emotional capacity to come up with anything else. And my preaching instructor from seminary drove all the way up to be there. It was an awful morning, just awful. And so that year was a year of helping. We did our work. Dan was gone about half the time. My ministerial supervision came from a Unitarian congregation some ways away and a rabbi who was local. Both wonderful teachers. I learned a lot. Having 3 instructing ministers was really a gift in a certain way. Everyone had different recommendations, so you had to sort of chart your way. But that's good advice. That's good to know. And it happened, I need to tell the story. When I entered seminary, I was not planning on becoming a parish minister. In fact, I had told close friends of mine, if I ever start leaning in the direction of having to preach every week, I want you to put me in a chair in a little room and don't let me leave until I've had a come to Jesus realization that this is not my best self. No one did that, so you've got the benefit of that. I apologize. I know I am not the most consistent preacher. I know that. I wanted to go into retreat ministry. At that time of my life, I had been given a second chance, and that sounds overblown, but it really felt that way. On several occasions over a few years in my young adult years, I had gone out to a place called Clare's Well, which was a Franciscan retreat center run by 2 nuns, Carol and Aggie, on 40 acres, little over an hour west of Minneapolis. And there, on numerous visits over 3 or 4 years, I slowed myself down, listening to the ebbs and flows of the more, as I saw it then, natural life. And I realized that my work in refugee relations, I was working in a Cambodian American refugee and immigrant center. And during the years I was with RIRC, how do I put it? In seminary that first week, we asked each other, the students asked each other, so what's your calling? What drew you here? And my answer it wasn't a sense of calling per se, but God kicking me in the bum several times, first this way, then that way, and over time I realized there was somewhat of a direction in it. Others had more eloquent answers. I envied them. I do still now, but much less so. So that year in Santa Rosa, the church administrator. There were 3 paid staff. In the professional way, we had myself, the minister, our office person, and a very part-time director of religious education. And that year, the office person, Barbara, and I held the congregation to the best of our ability. As we were dealing with the loss of our leader, the loss of someone who had been an educator, who had helped pastor us. And the culmination was on Christmas Eve night. And I fell in love with parish ministry when we did the traditional thing, and I had done this many times before as a born and bred Unitarian, where we light each other's candle at Christmas Eve. Well, I had always been there, where you are in the pews. And if you are here on Christmas Eve, you will hear me say, look at one another. Look at how beautiful we are. Because that year, as an intern minister in Santa Rosa College, kind of California, I looked out at the congregation, and their faces were all lit by the glow of candles, and it was breathtaking. And I realized I loved these people. I was just coming to get to know them, and I loved them. I loved this role and relationship with them. And that was the end of my desire for retreat ministry. An incident at Clare's Well did help educate me in that regard as well. One day when I was there, Aggie came running up to me with a rifle in her hand. She said, Eric, come quick. The mother skunk has left underneath the barn, and her little skunklets are following her. Take the gun, shoot her, kill her. Oh, come on, this is dramatic. And she gave me the gun. I had never handled a rifle before or since, although I've been to gun ranges. And I realized I had a decision to make. I missed that skunk by the proverbial country mile intentionally. I could hear the shots ricochet, bounce off the little pond behind the skunk. And I knew Aggie wouldn't be happy, but my conscience wouldn't allow me to do anything else. I realized then farming would never be for me as much as it is a noble calling. The story that Jody shared talked about mistakes and how they can be our friends and how we can learn from them. Let me tell you a story. It's a mistake, yes, no, but it's something that happened and defined my ministry. In June of 2012, I, a religious educator, and a few other adults from the congregation I then served took a youth pilgrimage to visit that congregation's partner church in Transylvania, Romania, Hungarian speaking. We had been in touch with Reverend Albert Kozma for some time, and he was begging us to come. He was planning a huge festival, and he took out all the stops. There were archers, there were horsemen. I got to see members of my congregation on horseback, something I had never seen before or since. If you are horse people, let me know. I am not, but it was beautiful to watch. Different sides of our facets, our personalities come to light. And Reverend Albert was so busy planning and working with this, getting the festival up and running, that we didn't have time to meet and talk about the Sunday service we would do jointly on Sunday morning until 2 o'clock on Saturday night. So we got to church and no one had slept very much. And this is a country church in Transylvania. The women sit over here, the elder women sit there, the younger women sit further back. The men sit here, the older men sit front, the younger men in back. And I wanted to respect that, but I couldn't resist the urge to undermine it a little bit. I asked one of our youth, Katie, to come up and take the pulpit and offer the scripture reading that day. I don't think a woman had ever been in that pulpit sharing a scripture reading. It felt like a little victory, but not necessarily. It wouldn't have passed Star Trek's prime directive. Let's leave it there. That night, after we had a feast after church and boarded the little shuttle bus to take us to the Bucharest Airport Hotel, where we had a 5 o'clock Monday morning flight, about an hour out of Bucharest, Katie, who had done the scripture reading, came and sat at the seat across from me and said, "Eric, I think I need to tell you something. I feel bad about this, but when we left Columbus, Ohio at the airport, and the families said goodbye to their youth, and you told all the parents that you would keep their children safe. Well, I want you to know that last night, one of the other girls on the trip and the 24-year-old Transylvanian interpreter, well, they hooked up." And I thought, oh shit. We knew that the church was building a conference center, and we thought we would all be sleeping there. We could keep tabs on everyone, but it wasn't ready. So we had everyone scattered throughout the village, which meant we couldn't supervise everyone all the time. And the interpreter was Adonis incarnate. He was gorgeous. And yet our 16-year-old, I won't name her, but he made an impression on her. And that night, after learning and talking to the young woman in question, and then trying to figure out how I would address this when we got back home, and then holding the girl by the shoulder as we approached their parents, who were waiting for us at the gate at the airport. And I said, "Your daughter has something to tell you. It shouldn't have been my business what she did with her body. And yet, it was on my watch. And I had told her parents I would do everything I could to protect their kids." Now, in Transylvania, and I don't want to be too crass about this, the young man in question probably saw this as a bit of a conquest. He got an American girl. Where we lived in the state of Ohio, it was borderline statutory rape. I want to be really clear about that. I could have lost my career. But we handled this with openness, and thankfully, the girl's mother had a friend that talked about her own European escapades as a teenager, and a different context was put around what happened. And we continued to be part of a congregation that respected and cared for one another. The family learned more about me, how scared I was, but I wasn't going to not tell it. The girl was like, "I thought we could tell my parents in a couple of days." And I was like, "No, we can't let any time pass, because if we let time pass, it will only pass. It won't ever happen. And we need to come clean." Those couple of days aged me at least 3 years. I remember the night coming home, being with my wife, Anne, crying for several hours, just fear, the emotion of it all. And after an hour and a half, she said, "Eric, I'm with you, but what happened? You've never told me exactly what happened." Couldn't bring it to words. Now, that's a strange story to be talking about in a sermon on what calls us to our fullness. Sometimes it's an actual phone call. Sometimes it's a sense deep inside. Sometimes it's a sense that God's kicking us in the tush, this way or that. life gives us all opportunities to be who we are in our fullness. It's up to us to heed those messages when we can and learn most often, if we're lucky enough, but most often, that there will be another opportunity to say, we're enough, we're here, and that's a good gift to the world, each and every one of us. I've rambled on too long. I will close this now, and we will wrap things up. Susan? Oh, no, Jen, you do a little music, and then she talks. Or maybe you just talk. We didn't rehearse this.
Will the ushers please start passing the offering baskets now? Thank you. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. We rely on one another to keep this congregation vital and resilient. If you have any questions about how you can give, please go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or to keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate the gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. Please rise as you are willing and able to join together in singing once more. We Are is hymn number 1051 in the teal hymnal. The lyrics will also be on the screen.
Lord,
Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that our coffee hour will begin in Fellowship Hall immediately after the service. And on your way there, if you go to the right, the good folks of Ajaski have made available their leafy greens for anyone who would like some. As I've said before, I go in there during the week to get an oxygen fix. It helps keep me sane and happy. And in that same room with the Grow Towers, items from our grocery support program, both food and household items, are available for any who would care for them. If you are new here, looking for my prop, new here, still feel new, or simply welcome a really great conversation today, please pick up a green mug as you enter Fellowship Hall. Doing so will help others looking forward to a good conversation find you. And if you see someone holding a green mug, ask them about who they are and what drew them here this morning. That will start another great conversation. We extinguish our chalice now to these words from my colleague, the late Martha L. Munson. We extinguish the chalice here that it might grow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. Jen, will you bless us again by leading us in our closing song? Please rise. Spirit of Life, which you'll find as number 123. We'll sing it through first in English and then en français. Please be seated. As now we return to the challenge and the joy of helping the world come alive in love, let us go forward with love in our hearts, sowing seeds of justice from our hands, with peace in our steps. Go in peace, my friends. Go in peace.